Welcome back to my series about the Apple III computer. I hope you watched the introduction part 1 and the second part, which was more focusing on the hardware of my Apple III system. Today we want to look at the software. I want to have this section a little bit about discussing what is new on the Apple III software side, because it's so tightly webbed together with the Apple III hardware. The Apple III was designed to accompany large software projects. But let's start it up. Turn on the monitor, turn on the computer, and it will start up the Selector software. The Selector software was also a software in 1984 made for the Apple III for users who have a profile drive. So the design of the Selector 3 and also the easy pieces is very familiar to people who know the Apple works on the Apple II. And that is no coincidence. When the Apple III failed and didn't have the big user base everybody was hoping for, these programs were transferred to the Apple II and became the Apple Works. So at first, let me show you just a little bit how this selector works and how it works on the Apple III. For example, here's a subdirectory languages. I can start Business Basic, Pascal, Fortran, and COBOL, and I can also do the famous or infamous Apple II emulation. We do this a little bit later because that's a special section just about the Apple II emulation. It's really fascinating, and I want to go a little bit more in detail on that one. Now let's just start Business Basic. And I do it from this place here. I just hit my enter button and voila, Apple III Basic is starting. So first I just want to go into my work directory, and there is the Hello program, which I worked a little bit on it. Those of you who know DOS 3.3 on the Apple II will know what the Hello program is. The Hello program is executed when you start a disk with DOS 3.3. I restarted the Business Basic, and now let's go into my games directory, and of course I have tons of basic games in there, which some are kind of fun, others are really boring. What I want to point out here is, so we have the DOS 3.3 on the Apple II. They built the SOS, the SOS system for the Apple III and made it really ready to support huge mass storage devices. Now the Apple III fails commercially, but they have invested so much time into the software, and guess what? They move it over to the Apple II and call it Pro DOS, Professional DOS. They cut a couple of features from the Apple source, but they keep the core thing. You can have directories, you can scroll up and down in the directories, and it is capable of handling larger volumes or more entries. So the Pro DOS, which is then the dominating operating software for all the Apple IIs up to the Apple II GS, that is a direct result from the Apple III development. So now I want to show you, of course, something with games, basic games that is fitting for the 1980s, and one of the very iconic games. So what my program does is, when you hit 2 and say okay, go into the game directory, it makes a list of the all the games in there, and you can see, ooh, it's a very long list, and you can't read it as fast. Now, the SIG group, back then, very recognized Apple III user group, made something really nice, and that is the menu maker. That is searching through all the basic programs in your directory and put it in a nice form, and it's easy to navigate and easy to select. So it's now running through all this stuff, and I want to do the biorhythm. Back in the 80s, that was a big deal. Even in the 70s, I would say, but also when I was getting involved in computers, and that was in the 80s. Yeah, biorhythm, that is something you had to print out so you know your mood and your mood swings and when you have to make decisions and when not. So what you can see is I just selected on the screen, hit the return button, it starts the program. So Vinny, the vintage guy, our birth date, let's say September 29th, 1966. Starting date of the chart, the 1st of January 1980. Let's see. Our length of the chart in days, let's say the whole day of January. Send the output to the printer or the screen, or just for the simplicity, that is Tesla, if you hear it in back. He wants to see his biorhythm. Okay, I had a short discussion with Tesla. Now we can go on. So I don't want to print it out right now, just to show a quick overview on the screen. And here it comes. Let's see. Oh, the intellectual capabilities are way down on 1st of January. I guess that's a question of beer and whiskey. And my emotional would be on the rising edge, as you would expect for a new year. What we do first is we will start the SAUS system utilities, which came with the Apple III. And the system utilities allow you to work with disks, with files, and also the mass storage devices. So, for example, the device handling commands. You can copy whole volumes, rename the volume, format it, verify it, or list the devices configured. Right now I just will do this. It will ask where the listing should go. I put it on console, which is another word for the monitor. So that's what it's rattling through all the disk drives. And you can see here the CFIDE drives. So I called one the boss, the other the scratch, and the third one HVR MHGL, which is a completely random thing. This is pretty much my copy of the profile drive, my real big fat profile drive, and this is a partition where I just copy it on it. So I go with escape, I go out. Of course you can set time and date. I showed you I have a built-in clock, so you can really see I have the right date, the 9th June 20 internally, or some software programs of course think it's 1920, but for my purposes it is good enough. file handling commands. And there's a first thing which is new for Apple II DOS users. Make a subdirectory. DOS can't do subdirectories. The source can do it. And again, I remind you, the ProDOS is later. The source is the father of the ProDOS. And this is the system configuration program. And that's really the interesting part. So the source does support driver files. We know this from the Windows environment very well, right? Every Windows user is on the hunt for the right drivers for his equipment. The source was one of the first for the PC world which had the same thing. So I will read now the driver files which I have right now on my system. So I read it from the disk 1 where my startup drive is. It reads in the SOS driver file, which contains all the drivers I need for my system. Takes a while. Alright, and there we are. So the first, the FMTD 1, 2, 3 and 4, these are the floppy drives. And following the CFIDE, that is my internal compact flash. And you can see I have enabled only 3 drives. Every time you see a little star, yeah, that says I have not enabled the driver.